Hello, everybody. It's Graham and Stephen with another Wow Ergonomics. It's Friday, midday. Wow, what a wonderful week it's been. How's your week been?
It's been a good week. A couple of days in Manchester. So Tuesday was with our good friends at Posturite. Really interesting event. Attended there at the War Museum, International War Museum. That was on Tuesday. Imperial War Museum, not the International, Imperial War Museum. Then stayed in over on Wednesday to see some of our friends in the IT world, and then another IT day yesterday, but it's Silverstone racetrack. So yeah, it's been a good week so far. And then
Brilliant.
Here we are back to reporting back to you on a Friday as ever.
Well, one of our guests is saying that they're here, but they're not here. So where is here is what
where
I
is
want to
here
know.
is the point. Yeah. It's all right saying you're here, but if you're not at our here, that's no good to us.
Yeah, I'm going to say click on the link, not the image. Yeah, some people get that wrong with StreamYard. For anyone that's using StreamYard to put stuff out onto LinkedIn or whatever, when it comes through as a link, there's often the graphic above it with the StreamYard duck, etc. And then the link, if you click on the other bit, it takes you to a bit where you have to register for an account and all of that sort of malarkey. And then you get lost in a land far, far away. Anyway, well, one of our guests is here, so that's wonderful. So what I'm going to do is do this, make that disappear, and I'm going to welcome Ella Smith-Dunn to the stage. Hello, Ella.
Hello.
Good to be here. Where are you coming from? Where are you coming from?
I'm currently in Harrogate in my newly decorated blue office to make me happy.
I'm going to say that's a lovely colour and a nice chair, soft chair there in the background as well.
It's my dog's favourite place to sit and bark during calls, so he's out the room today.
Isn't it funny? I'm just going to start there. Isn't it funny how many of us have like soft seating in an office area? No one ever sits on it.
No.
It's just to look good.
Pretty.
Yeah. It looks pretty and looks good on calls. No one ever sits on it.
No,
it's like I bought an absolute sofa and no one sits on it at all ever. My son is actually home from university at the moment. He's sleeping on it because it is actually a safer bed as well, so you can pull it out and so it has that functionality. He's left it a bit untidy at that end, which is good because it's out of shot. Ella, we'll find out all about you a little bit more in a minute, but let's just welcome our other guest today as well. Back for I don't know whether it's just the second time or the third time. It's Paul from Backworld.
Hello.
Paul, hello.
Hi.
We found you.
Sorry, it got a bit emotional. It wouldn't let me log in on Safari, and then I had to sign in 53 times. And it accepts everything.
No.
And it got I started swearing. The dogs left the room and everything.
Oh my word! My word. That's what it is. How was your week? What have you been up to this week?
It's been good. I've been to London.
Yes.
To Clerkenwell Design Week, which
we
as
will
you may
definitely
know,
talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, it's sort of like a music festival, but for furniture sellers.
That's a great explanation.
I've never heard it described as that before.
Some people get more excited about it than others.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's some very interesting things on display there, like fabrics and casters and stuff like that, which for some people floats their boat. For other people, it's probably the most boring thing in the world. There we are. We'll leave it at that. Ella, we're coming back to you. Ella, tell us a little bit about you and what it is you do.
So I am a people operations partner at a data consultancy in Leeds. And in terms of what I do, the best answer is probably everything. Anything day-to-day.
You do it all.
Covers a range of things. When I was at uni, my lecturer said, you're a great HR butterfly, but you're going to have to specialize. That's not how the world works.
Right.
And I found a job where I don't have to specialize, and it's great.
Brilliant. Oh, imagine that being told you have to specialize. You know, that's happened.
It's too good to just pick one thing. Yeah.
You mentioned a couple of words on your profile, your LinkedIn
Yes.
profile, which I love. Which one is agile and the other is people. Does that kind of sum up a lot of what you do?
Yes, so I definitely am leaning towards the term people over HR. I think HR to a lot of people represents like process driven and box ticking, and that is absolutely not what it's and I am about. And it's about putting people at the center of everything you do. And the term people obviously encompasses that a lot better than human resources. It just seems really cold in today's world.
I often think
I
with
thought
human
it stood for
resources,
horribly restrictive.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Oh, well, there's that as well.
Yeah, you often think you're in trouble when you hear HR mentioned, do you?
Yes.
It sounds a little bit like you've got to take the long walk down the corridor to the door second on the left, and what's going to be happening when I arrive.
It's like when you were at school and you had to go and see the headmistress, wasn't it? You know,
Yeah,
not
it was
that
never
that
good
ever
news.
happened.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I
And
like
that's
that.
not what
So
I'm
it's
about
more about
either.
people.
Yes.
Cool.
And putting people first at the core of everything you do.
Cool. Well, you'll find you've probably got kindred souls here, and when it comes to putting people first, would you say that's probably true, Paul?
I hope so. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I sell product, but I want to sell the right product to the person. It would be really easy just to push a load of cheap stuff or a lot of really good stuff because I like it, but it's about people
because it's got a better profit margin.
It's nice if it's got a better margin. Of course, we're all in it to make money at the end of the day. But I'll make money by making sure that people get the right product and making them happy with it.
Paul, have you ever had it where people are insisting? I mean, and the answer is yes, I guess, to this, but maybe some examples where people are insisting that you sell them product X, even though you know product X is totally wrong for them and they need product Y. How often does that come up, and how do you sort of deal with those sort of situations?
It doesn't happen a lot because most people come in with a fairly open, well, even whether they come in or not with an open mind, when they see how much product there is and how much variety and different things. I'm sitting on a stall at the moment that doesn't have a backrest on it, and that blows people's minds straight away if they've never seen one before. And of course, some people have more of an idea than others of what they want or what they think they want. I just like to slow it down, just slow it right down. And it takes a while sometimes to get people to listen to you because they've got their own, I had a lady once, she brought her husband in and he definitely needed a chair. In a previous life, she'd been an occupational therapist. So she thought she knew, and she was lovely and she did know stuff that I didn't know, but she thought she knew more than me about seating for a while. So, and she kept pressing buttons on the chair and making him do this and that and trying to overtake what I was doing. So, it would have been easy just to get, probably 5 years ago, I'd have just got quite stressed with her and said, just shut up, listen. But if you just slow it down and just slowly make that, bring them round to the idea that you do know what you're talking about, you're the expert in the room, and then they'll start to listen a little bit more attentively.
Ella, is that one of the things that you find is the problem with a lot of traditional HR, etc., is that actually dealing with people properly takes a bit of time?
Yes. Yeah, I'd say traditional HR's focus is more reactive. Something happens, you find a solution, you work through it, you get to the end point. But actually, if you're proactive and you take that approach to slow it down, understand the why, what you're trying to achieve, what people want, and the why, because often people know what they want and then they think they know how to get that. But actually, if you slow it down, like you say, and talk through what exactly it is you're trying to achieve, you can come to a more a better solution at the end of it if you work collaboratively together.
Yeah, it's important. It's important to take time with people. It's interesting. We were having a conversation yesterday. I think I've mentioned it on here before as well. Especially now, everything has gone kind of hybrid, and since COVID, and everyone spent a lot more time on computers. People don't tend to give people thinking time at all.
Yes.
Does everybody kind of agree with that? It's kind of like, and it seems that it just seems, maybe it's because I'm getting old, but as you get older, it seems that like the amount of time that people give people time to process any kind of information gets less and less and less. It's almost like, and move on to the next thing and move on to the next thing. And I wonder whether actually we're getting less and less quality out of people by trying to drive productivity in a way. It's like we want to move on and get the next thing faster, but people aren't actually taking any time to think.
But it's like that instant gratification, isn't it? And I guess with some of the technology that's come in, it started delivering things instantly, and therefore people expect everything to be sort of either answered or addressed instantly. And email and things like that, I think it's just the whole thing has delivered this situation where people want instant answers. And as you say, the risk that with that is that the wrong decision's made, like with Paul saying, slowing it down, talking them through the process, making sure that you get it right first time. How many times have people made mistakes because they've dived in quickly to get something off a to-do list or to instantly answer someone because the WhatsApp message come through or whatever, and then 5 minutes later they go, oh, I've done the wrong thing, I should have said that. So that desire to answer or respond quickly has actually created more errors potentially.
Yeah,
I'm definitely.
What do you think, Ella?
I think absolutely, and I think AI is a great example of this, that it reaches all realms, which is really quick to implement this really new exciting thing that's going to change the world and change our lives. But especially in the HR realm, there's loads of stuff coming out now around discrimination that's happening when you use AI in the recruitment process, because we've not put in that human layer. We've not thought, yes, but what biases does it have? What are the potential problems we're going to have? And they've just implemented it really quickly, and it's come back to bite them and negatively impacted everyday people.
Yeah, you notice that. I do wonder whether, in some organisations we've actually got AI just talking to AI.
Yeah,
it almost feels like that. It's like, I ping you an email, my system like automatically works out that it's this kind of email, and then it pings back an automated AI, thing. And it's like people probably don't even know what's actually going on. And it's probably like, you actually finally meet that person at a show or something. You go, oh yeah, I spoke to you. Oh, did you? Racking my brain. Oh, well, no, actually, yeah, I sent you an email. Well, no, it's just my computer was talking to your computer. Actually, it was. We've never actually met. I just wonder we're taking if we take the people out of the equation too much, we end up missing massive great layers. Do we not?
100%. I think as well, like post-pandemic, I think during the pandemic, everyone had to make quick decisions, no matter like in relation to what it was. And I don't think we've quite got out of that habit of reacting and like slowing it down and taking the time to like thinking time to process it. And I do think that that's had a big impact on that, the slowing things down.
Yeah. So much so that what's just happened is that AI has actually just taken Stephen away for a little bit.
And then brought him back just like that.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a funny one actually. I've got to throw this in as a bit of a side. Do you remember, like with technology, when technology, we started seeing a bigger churn on technology? I can remember having conversations with people that were having to open their person pay. It's like a computer system that traditionally had lasted sort of like 10 years, right? Now it's like every year or whatever, you've got to update your computer system.
Yeah.
And one of the things my dad always used to say when I was trying to get him to open his wallet to pay for computers or whatever, it's like, well, and will it make the tea as well? I just think, are people still saying that? Is that a thing? Why do we gravitate towards things making tea? Is that a kind of an important thing for technology to be able to do?
You could plug your kettle into an Amazon Echo thing, couldn't you? And leave it switched off, and then just go on to turn the kettle on.
Or you could just buy a Teas Made and go back to 1978, I guess.
Yeah.
I did similar. I WhatsApped my Teas Made and said I'd like a cup of tea, please, and one came.
Yeah. What are we actually getting right in terms of sort of people behaviour out there at the moment, Ella? What are you seeing that we're getting right?
I think that it is a minefield at the minute. I think varying, like take hybrid working, it proved that it worked during COVID, but yet there are still companies time and time clawing that back for reasons of productivity and culture. But like going back to the why, what is the real reason for that? And I think there are so many great people out in the people space making waves and making change to create workspaces that are agile, that are flexible, it always baffles me why we prescribe ways to work when things like personalities and extroverts versus introverts have always been recognized, but yet we don't recognize that in the way we work. And there's so much good stuff coming out of the people space in relation to creating inclusive work environments, but there are still those people and the companies in there putting up blockers, and the why still isn't very clear. And so it's hard to account and change that when you don't really understand why, because what they're putting out publicly most likely is not what they mean. So there's great stuff coming out of it, but there's still the same age-old problems occurring.
This might be interesting for you, Ella, but Paul runs a Backworld, which is a place where you can go and buy anything that will actually help you in your posture and everything, down in the southwest of the country, really near me. Are you finding that although companies are talking about flexible working and allowing people to work from home and whatever, is that they're still not putting the same emphasis in terms of spend on home provision to office provision? And then is there still that piece going on as well, where it's like, if it is in the office, we want everybody's to kind of fit in and look the same, please. We don't want individualism.
There are not many companies that come to me, that send people to me en masse and say, let them choose their own chair. That's a very, but then, largely you don't need to. If you've got a decent chair with a decent amount of adjustment, that's fine. Very few companies are doing home assessments for people, even now. Very rare, even though they're really supposed to. There's a big dip. It's disappointing we haven't worked that out yet. It's 3 or 4 years. People like the choice to be able to work at home, and I think companies are kind of saying, well, you've chosen to work at home, therefore if you're not comfortable, that's your problem. And that's another way around it. Of course, they could say, right, everyone back in the office. But now now we've organised our lives. Now it's not really possible to just go and work 5 days in an office anymore. Who's going to pick up the kids? Well, I've got a dog during lockdown. What do I do with the dog?
But do you think, Paul, does it need 1 or 2 large organisations to be sort of caught out by the HSE and it's become well publicised for other organisations to then sort of take heed and do something about that? Because like you say, what I sort of pick up anecdotally is that generally pretty much no one gets an assessment at home, but actually they should do. So our company's just rolling the dice that their number's not going to come out in the HSE lottery, and they're not going to be the ones who get picked up to be called on to have a look at what they're actually doing.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I've never heard of, and you guys may know, better place to know. I've never heard of the HSE prosecuting anybody for not producing a DSE report on somebody. It's just something. It's there. You're supposed to do it, but even the HSE don't take it seriously. So why should anybody else? I used to work in a building. I used to work with a small company. And the fire door, there was a fire door at the bottom of the stairs. We were upstairs, and the fire door was just down the stairs and straight out the back. It was always locked. And I used to say to them, and that's something you will generally get in trouble for. But it's particularly, the larger companies are better, aren't they? But the small and medium-sized companies, they don't even know, let alone do it half the time. Maybe it's our fault for not educating. Maybe it's down to me. I don't know.
It's all your fault, Paul. That's the best way. Yeah, it's all your fault.
It's funny. Is that still something that is a problem culturally within kind of the people, the people looking after people type sector, which is ultimately companies are pretty good at playing lip service to doing stuff, and at the top end have got a charter to say this and that, and this is our great mission, this is what we're doing for people. But as that granulates down, they're not really. It's just lip service.
Well, you tend to be kind of reactive to things rather than preventative. I think what we might start seeing is actually people. The job market's still, it's still a buyer's market, isn't it? I think people are going to start saying, actually, no, if you don't look after me, I'll go and work for someone that will. And there are companies that do. There's some very good employees in Exeter.
I think as well, especially with health and safety, it's very easy for especially small to medium companies to go, oh, it's a HR problem. You know, that's your area. When actually we're not specialists in it. That's a whole other field. And it's easy to dump it in the HR department, but it's still not doing its service because you're not taking it seriously, because you're just giving it to someone that has no experience or training in it. So people do their best, but would put their hands up and say, I'm no expert. I'm doing what I can. And I think that until companies take that seriously, then nothing's really going to change. But then on the flip side of that, you've got, you know, what's going on in the economic world, that can companies afford to do that? And like you say, if it becomes a war on talent, and I do think priorities have shifted post-pandemic, that people now will be like, no, you don't treat me well enough, I'm out. And I do think people will do that. And I think that will be the catalyst for people to take it seriously, rather than threat of punishment from the HSE.
Yeah, I wonder if actually there needs to be, organisationally within companies, there needs to be a kind of bit of reining in, a bit like they've started to do with some university courses. And by that I mean like which they've started to do, because university courses got well out of hand. All right. When I when like my parents, if they were lucky enough to go to university, there was like a handful of courses that you could do at university. By the time I went to university, there were lots and lots of courses you could do. And then it got to a point where it was just absolutely ridiculous. You could literally do a course in anything. In fact, I actually went to, I think I've said this to you before, as part of like DSA, I once went to do an assessment with someone that was studying at university at degree level, the food of God. I kid you not. So that was their degree. So you could just about do a degree in anything. But actually organisationally, that same thing's happened as well. That it seems to be, we've got almost so much granulation in terms of task and speciality and whatever, whereas it used to be, if you looked at the structure of a business, it was fairly straightforward. It was like, you know, there was these people in management, these people mid-management, these people that were doing the work on the ground or whatever, and it was all pretty clear what was going on. Now there's like this department, that department, this department, whatever. Does anybody actually know who's responsible for anything anymore? Is that part of the problem? And actually, you know, when you start to get into it, people are just going, oh, well, there's a famous film that was out this year. I can't remember which one it was. And when we watched it, it was like everyone kept pushing everyone to another department around this building, and they all went, no, it's not our department, go and see them. And the people that started in one place ended up back in the same place. It had to go all the way around though, and then finally someone took responsibility, but it took forever. Is that what it's getting like?
I look at what we do, and I'm breaking this down to what we as a business do and I do, and hopefully that sort of relates back to what you're getting to, Graham. But if you look at the sort of things that we make as a company, there are so many different departments across lots of different companies where it actually fits. I think that's the problem. Ownership. Who does it sit within that business? Because, you know, with certain things, whatever the organization, it'll always be in that department over there. Whatever the company, that department takes responsibility. Paul will know this from going out to see businesses. It could be HR, it could be facilities, it could be procurement, it could be health and safety, it could be IT. I think that's one of the problems, is the fact that with this, what we do, there are so many different departments who could pick it up, because there are so many different departments now within organizations. When there were fewer departments, it was very clear it would either A, it was B or C. The problem with now is it could be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, R, you know what I mean? And that's where it can get lost within certain businesses as to where certain things go, who's responsible, because the lines become very blurred. Where it was clearer lines, it was obvious who was responsible for that within a business. Now I think that's where it can maybe potentially slip through the cracks, or, as Ella said, there isn't specialization in certain departments, or certain departments who are assumed should be responsible don't have the experience to pick up that piece of subject matter.
Ella, is it, if HR could be one thing, solid thing within an organization. If it's looking after the people, would it be useful if an HR department or people department actually knew the roadmap for any stakeholder that had to talk to a business? Would that be a useful thing for an HR department to be able to facilitate? Not necessarily have the responsibility for everything, but at least be able to be the signposter for everybody that was coming in or was in the business to know who to be talking to.
So yeah, there's a balance there. So absolutely, that as like HR or people in an organization, you are the most likeliest person to be talking to people across silos. And generally people within silos don't talk to each other, but HR often is the person that is going to all of them. So yes, in that sense, that they probably have a broader understanding of what's going on in each department. But then there runs the risk of then HR just becoming the signposter, and then no actual strategic work can be done because you're spending all your time signposting, which is where I think like defining, especially in the HR department, what you're responsible for and knowing where to send people to. And then hopefully with the right internal comms, people will then start to learn. But if you just rely on HR to be that person forever, you're not going to develop and grow because you're hindering what people can do.
Yeah. So a lesson to be learned there is that we perhaps need to put more resource into HR to allow them to do both effectively.
Yeah, that is, you've hit the nail on the head there. It's the constant fight in HR is people are always asking of HR to prove their value and worth. And that is what we're like, and especially like for how it's portrayed in the media. I could go on about that forever. But none of that is helping how people perceive HR. And like when I tell people what I do, 9 times out of 10 they shut off and don't want to talk to me anymore. It's like it's breaking down those conceptions and proving our worth. But it is an exhausting fight because it's day in, day out. You're having to defend why you're there. And luckily, I found a company that truly values the department, but I've worked in places that don't, and it is exhausting, and which is why there is a massive burnout in the people space, because the expectations and the undervaluing of people is not good.
Now, Paul probably has the Sorry,
I was going to say, does the is it its name itself? Does human resources as a department need a rebrand?
Yes. The other side of that is that HR has rebranded itself so many times now that people, even people within HR, don't understand the job titles that are in it. So a rebrand, absolutely, but one that's consistent, because and the problem is as well, each company uses different titles. So if you are looking for a new role, it's hard to tell if you're qualified because they've called it something different. And then the salaries are so varied. So it's very confusing to climb the ladder in HR because the ladder isn't even defined, and which adds to the whole problem of proving your worth and value as well.
All I was going to say very briefly was I think Paul probably has the opposite problem. I know for myself when I used to sell chairs and ergonomic equipment or whatever, everybody wanted to talk to me, but that didn't necessarily mean I needed to talk to everybody, because everybody wanted to ask me about their backache or their problem or whatever, but then getting them to then spend the money, that's a completely different thing, isn't it?
Very much so, yes.
Yeah. Do you find you get quite a lot of people just like, can I just talk to you about this? Can I, get a bit of advice, etc., but not necessarily realise that you've got a job to do?
Yeah, a little bit. Obviously, yes, it's not too bad. I mean, you'll get a problem sometimes where you've got a client, you've got the right product for them. There it is. They're really struggling. I've given them several options, but the best one will usually be the costliest one. And they're like, oh, I couldn't possibly spend that much on me. That conversation's easy if they've bought their partner with them. Because the other half is just, don't be so tight. It's important. It's your back. Just give the man your money and let's go. So that makes it easier for me, because it's easy for me to say you need that. It's £1,000. It's not my money. So that's again slowing it down and making people understand what the value in the product is.
Yeah. Stephen, where do you sit in terms of conversations? Do you find like it's easy to find the right person, and or do you get a lot of time wasted sometimes with some people?
Not necessarily time, a bit of both. Not necessarily time wasted. A bit like what you said there. There's lots of people interested in products and solutions we do. Ultimately, whether they are the decision maker about that product or service, that's the challenge.
Yeah.
So everyone's going to be interested. Well, everyone. Yeah, I'd say everyone should be interested in their sort of health and productivity at work. Do they feel comfortable? Are they free of physical pain, mental, exhaustion, those sort of things? Everyone's interested in that. Whether they have got the ability to do something about that within their organization, that's where the big challenge can come. And that, as I was saying before, we find organizations who are easier to deal with and are where you've got multi-level, multi-departmental relationships, because you can sort of navigate your way through a business. If you're limited to who you're speaking to, you can speak to all the employees they've got, but if ultimately you're not speaking to the right person, you can't help make the change for those people. So yes, I think there's generally a lot of interest, but making that change or affecting that change is probably the big challenge when we are engaged with end users.
Yeah. Ella, you spoke about silos yourself. Do you think actually within a lot of organisations we see too much sort of silo activity going on, and rather than the organisation taking it back to sort of big picture level and then working out actually maybe there's a bigger action that we need to bring in here, where we bring actually everybody that needs to be involved in that together all at once, we get the results and or the data and everything else we actually need, rather than stringing it along over there and then over there and then trying to bring it together. Is that part of the problem? Are people not necessarily being as efficient as they can right at top level in terms of like the overall plan and picture?
I think in terms of silos, like I think a lot of work recently has been done to break down silos, but then what you find happening is like psychologically, we like to group together, we like to be in our safe groups. And so they are like silos are then reoccurring naturally. And so the work is like culturally around, we don't need to gatekeep information. We don't need to compete against each other. And it's creating that culture where that communication occurs naturally, that whilst, yes, bringing people into the right people into the right conversation is key, you could still do that and then people still won't share information, because if you've got a culture where you're competing or you perceive to be competing, then that's not going to work either. So it comes down to, well, in my opinion, a lot of it comes down to the culture within the workplace.
Yeah, I bet Stephen and Paul, you've both seen that from time to time, where actually one department no, and they don't want to tell another department now.
Yeah, you do see that. You've got, as I say, I think competing was the word you used there, Ella, where you've got people wanting to sort of, they want it to be that they are the people in charge of this, and they keep it to themselves, and they don't want the information to go out. And it's just departmental struggles within businesses. But I guess as the more you have businesses in silo, the more competing players you've got. So it becomes harder then to navigate your way through businesses, and I guess harder to then get decisions made, because it's like, how do I get to the right person? Like we said before, previously there was 4 main departments, now there's 12. You're spending a lot of your time sort of moving and shaking and navigating, and it just becomes a lot less clear. And I guess it's harder then to make decisions, isn't it? Because it sits across lots of people, finding the right person, it just becomes more complicated.
Yeah,
For sure.
no, absolutely. Ella, you mentioned that there's some titles that have been used now in HR that are confusing. Have you got any examples of ridiculous titles? I think that's always fun.
Not ridiculous as a sense, but so like some companies will use the term business partner, like I'm a partner, I'm not a business partner. Or you've got the term people versus HR, then you've got people that don't even have anything in there that are like communications or like well-being, which when you actually look at what they do, it's people, it's HR, but they made, like, I was at a conference on Friday and someone referred to themselves as HR adjacent because they're in the wellbeing space. But I was like, hang on a minute, you are in the space doing great stuff, making change. You are HR, because it was a HR conference. Like, oh, I don't know if I should be here. I was like, you absolutely should be.
Yeah.
And I think that there is that perception of like traditional HR being process driven. If you're not doing policies and ticking those boxes, then you're not officially HR and you're not in the inner circle, and that's just a load of rubbish. It's about broadening it up, and it's about people that are affecting positive change in the workplace and creating those cultures where everyone can thrive. If you're achieving that, you are HR, or your people, whatever you want to call it. But I think, yeah, it's a lot of perceptions, a lot of different perceptions that are creating an unhelpful view of what we are collectively trying to achieve.
I think that's really interesting. I think that's really interesting that there's a whole kind of semantic, differential going on there.
Yeah.
Some organization, I mean, to me, if you heard the word well-being, you would expect that person to probably have some kind of almost medical background or training in, pan-trained across lots of different areas of well-being, maybe mental health, maybe, different specific learning difficulties, physical disabilities, whatever. And then you'll say, well, actually, there's probably a lot of those people that are maybe sort of more of an HR role, but they're just trying to branch out into that area, and others that, are heavier on that side, but they still want some kind of finger in the HR pie. That's really interesting. And that must be making it difficult for people like you and Stephen and Paul to actually know where to navigate.
Yeah, it can be. It's tricky, but I think it's all for like positive. Like, I think it's breaking down those stereotypical views, and I think that it's being clear, especially in the wellbeing space, whether it's like a passion or whether you are trained. I think that is a really key distinction. If you are going to then be helping people with their wellbeing, like directly, I think, and creating wellbeing culture is slightly different, and that does tend to sit within the people space. But that's a whole other realm of well-being going on at the minute. Yeah,
I'd love your views on this, Ella, and Stephen and Paul. At my previous employer, I started the process of trying to break down people's job titles and get us away from the ordinary, because I don't think a lot of job titles these days actually tell anybody anything. From the outside, they may tell you where someone is at kind of hierarchical level. So it might give you an inkling as to where they sit within the organization, and therefore seniority, and therefore whether they can make a decision about certain things. But I think there's still a massive problem in terms of not everybody I'll give an example. Not everybody that's a COO has got the same set of skills, right? Some may be really good in terms of their people skills, their vision skills, etc. They may be really good at sort of driving new ideas and innovation or whatever for the business. Others may be much more financial, for example, or systems based. They may be less of an outgoing person. They're not going to stand up and ignite everybody into that. You can have completely different skill set, and I was much more interested in, why don't we just give people kind of job titles which really explained what it was that those people were good at, and then underneath that it really said what they're good at, and B, what they're not good at. And actually focus more organizationally, on projects as opposed to people. So in other words, what projects or what things are we doing as a business? And then have we got the right people skill set wise in each of those projects to carry those forward? Because, quite frankly, you see a lot of the time where somebody is it because of their seniority and their position, they're brought into a project, but actually they've got no skill set to actually carry that. They don't add anything to it. So it's a complete waste of their time. You might as well have them over there where they could actually be doing something that they're really good at rather than there. And so you end up with this kind of whole accidental, not just accidental managers, people becoming accidental managers, but people becoming accidentally involved in bits of the business which they don't have the skill set for. If we had a real change in terms of structure, do you think it would be easier from both from the inside and the outside for people to understand how to get things done? God, that's left everyone silent.
What was the question? No, I think you're right. I think and I'm just thinking of people who I've sort of worked with in the past and people I engage with, presently. It does seem as if there's a bit of a straitjacket in terms of the job titles that people can have. And, you then end up pigeonholing people. There's not a set list of jobs, but there is. Do you know what I mean? There's only so many job titles out there, and people are getting those job titles. That's the nearest one. If we call him something different, people won't have a clue what they're doing. So we have to give him the name closest to what we think it is. But that in itself then creates problems, because it's like, well, hang on a second, you've given someone that job title, but that isn't what they do. That isn't their skill set, and that becomes then a little bit misleading, doesn't it? I think that was what you were sort of where you were coming from, Graham, wasn't it? That was the sort of the angle, was the fact that giving people job titles that are more relevant to what they do, not by definition on a drop-down box. They work in sales, therefore they have to be that or that. Actually, they could be multiple things, but no one knows what they are, so they have to be called either a sales manager or a sales director or whatever it would be.
And I think we end up promoting people in companies into the next level when they're not necessarily. That's not where they should be. They
How
need
often
to be
have good salespeople been promoted into sales managers? A good sales manager needs a different skill set to a good salesperson, and you've probably seen that, Ella, with your sort of HR experience. The next step up isn't necessarily the right step up, is it, for either the individual or for the business?
So I think that's where being very clear on what the next step is and what's expected, outside of the job title. I think job titles are a tricky one for different reasons, but internally they often carry weight, or they mean something different to the people inside the organization than to out. But then also that some people that have a long career in that industry and they've worked hard for their job title. I've had people in recruitment be like, I'll happy to join, but I want my job title to be this, because it means something to them. So if we start changing it, then it can out the blue. But I think as well that it's like you say, putting people on projects that don't necessarily be on projects because of a job title. That goes back to knowing your people. They're not a number. They're not, people are way more than their job title, both positively and negatively, whatever way you want to look at it. But if we start just pigeonholing people based on their job title rather than the person and the skills they hold, that's where we fall down. But as well, my other thought on job titles is that it can be really hard then to pivot. So something changes within the landscape of the business, and then someone says, I'm not doing that. That's not my role, because you've not been clear, because you've relied on a job title. So I think they are useful, but it should go way beyond their job title, their skill set and experiences.
Do you know what? I'd completely forgotten about people insisting on, part of their job title being something. But I've had that experience before. Now I want to be admin and marketing manager. They're completely useless at marketing. They know nothing about marketing, but they know that it's at a different pay level and it's got some kind of, if they keep it on their CV, then as they move on, people will put them into that pay grade. Absolute nonsense. Why are we doing that to ourselves? It's crazy.
I'm interested, Paul, Paul, as yourself being a one-man operation, as it were, one man and his dog, do you call yourself the owner of the business? How do you describe and project yourself when you're talking to clients and other people?
I try to project the business, really. And I don't, you've got to be authentic. I'm not, if somebody says, how many people do you employ? Well, I don't. I'm never going to lie about it.
No.
I try to make it look like, you know, and it is what it is. I'm not going to try and sell something I can't do. I'm not an office refurb company. If you want 200 really cheap chairs, probably not the person. So you often have to fit, job title. You often have to fill in a form and just says director. Well, what does that mean? It's my job title, I suppose. I put it on there because you want a short answer, but it doesn't really tell you anything about me, what I do, or Backworld, does it?
Which sums up what we were getting at, Graham, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In essence, putting that label on it doesn't actually describe. Paul, by definition of what he does, has to put director on a certain form, but actually that doesn't just give you any idea what he does in his day-to-day job.
But then also, by what you were saying, Stephen, if I walk around Clerkenwell and I see director on there, then the people in the showroom are taking a bit of an interest. If I put something else on there, can't think, dog's body for want of a better word, then I wouldn't have even got a free cup of coffee, let alone a chocolate brownie.
I always put in
food and drink.
I always put innovator where it asks for job title, and that tends to get them right confused.
Yeah.
Or I get a telephone call going, that was interesting. What do you mean by that? Yeah. Paul, before we leave us today, etc., was there anything interesting that you saw at Clerkenwell? Is there anything that did stand out as being a little bit innovative or a little bit different?
There wasn't a big standout product. I saw a couple of people, it's not that interesting, but colours seems to be coming in a lot more. I saw desk chairs rather than just have the standard white, silver, or black finish. I saw pink ones and green ones. Whoa. Which strikes a fear into the heart of anybody who's ever tried to create a product on a web page.
Yeah.
Do you realise how much work it's going to be for me to change what I just spent all day doing to add that one colour into there?
Yeah.
Oh my word!
Yeah.
Ella, can you see the HR nightmare coming when we start selling desks that are like Barbie pink and stuff?
Personally, I'm all for it. Might add a bit more admin time trying to collect everyone's favorite color, but I think that the more personality we can add, I mean, you've seen my room, how much personality we can add, it helps you be, like you said, authentic, which is great for well-being and personal achievement.
It's great for business too, isn't it? A business is much nicer to deal with if you're just dealing with a person that you like rather than a logo that you like.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how the A&D community actually navigate that, because I'm sure there's plenty of architects out there that would love to be a little bit more experimental in terms of how a place looks, etc. But you're going to fight against the corporate brand at the end of the day, and that's going to be difficult to navigate that, isn't it? It's not not everyone's going to go, oh yeah, okay, in this room we've got pink desks, green desks, blue desks, whatever. Oh, what colour's the company logo? Dark blue. Oh, actually we better go for white.
Yeah.
That's always going to be a difficult one to navigate, I think, unless we get a little bit more adventurous, full stop.
I was going to say, it just takes a couple of people to be brave. I mean, we've redone, our branding's recently been done, and there is a lot of colour and moving GIFs and all sorts. And the feedback we've had is amazing. So it's people want it, but it's needing those first people to be brave to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you need to go to Clerkenwell next year, have a look at what maybe your organisation can do it. Maybe you can, you can have like maybe you will end up with a Barbie pink desk. Well, I don't know that.
I will be the first. I will take
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Ella. Thanks, Paul, for coming in today. It's a great chat as usual.
Enjoyed it.
There we go. We've got a little bit of an announcement before we go. We have an event coming up.
We do.
Steve, do you want to?
We do. We started talking about it over the last couple of weeks, but Thursday, the 13th of June, at the Flock showroom in London, we have the next version of our sort of Ergo Fit, which is sort of an alliance between Flock, Ergotron, and Backworld cows. And so, we're putting on a really good event. We're going to get more information out. Watch this space on LinkedIn. Graham, you're going to be there in person, facilitating the show. We have some. We'll see if we're going to find out if you're real or are you AI. That's
absolutely. And there is I put out a challenge in my post the other day, and some people have kindly responded to that already, which is that I am going to be there from kind of midday, and the first 10 people that come and find me will get a prize. Simple
There you
as. There you go.
We've got a great panel lined up of guests. We've got Guy Osman, we've got Nicola Pease, we've got Jane Thompson from Flock, we've got Chris, and I always forget Chris's surname. Help me out,
Allen.
Graham. Chris Allen will be there as well. Food, drink, good company, good time, lots of new products. So yeah, we'll carry on. We'll talk about it on the next show, which is in 2 weeks' time. But obviously keep an eye on LinkedIn for the Eventbrite to sign up and all the information. So yeah, should be good.
So for anyone that wants to or is interested in coming, this is not just for people that want to nerd out on furniture. But if you like nerding out on furniture, you can do.
Knock yourselves out.
Or ergonomics, you can come along and nerd out on that. But anyone that's involved in HR, culture change within business,
flexible working,
being agile, all of that sort of thing, well-being for employees, anybody that's interested in any of those areas. We've got experts covering all of those different areas there. That panel is absolutely fantastic. The amount of knowledge that they've got between them is just outstanding. If they wrote a book, it would be this thick. So
I mean, it's funny, Graham, we've set aside an hour for the panel discussion. I got a feeling it's going to run a lot longer than that because there are some great people there, and I think when we really get those guys in conversation, I think it could just roll and roll. So that should be really good.
Absolutely. But please do come and join us. Centre of London. It's a lovely part of London as well. Anyway, there's lots of lovely little wine bars and pubs around that area. So even if you come and you think it's completely boring, you can just anyway.
Start time for that.
Sorry, start time for that. It's midday, isn't it?
2 o'clock.
Oh, 2 o'clock.
And then
I'll be there from midday. I'll be there from midday.
So hopefully you'll be there, Paul.
Yeah, I will. I was just Andrew mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. I was he couldn't tell me when it started. So I haven't been able to book a train ticket yet. So.
Yeah, no. We're getting the Eventbrite link in, and all that is being sorted. So if it's not done today, I suspect it'll be out there on Tuesday next week.
Marvelous.
Where are you based, Ella?
Harrogate near Leeds.
Harrogate. Well, it's a trip out for the day then, isn't it?
Yeah. An adventure.
There you go.
An adventure. Yeah, it'd be nice to see you too. Folks, please do join us again in 2 weeks' time because we're having a break off next week for more Wow Ergonomics. You can catch up on previous episodes of this at wowergonomics.com. I hope you've enjoyed it today. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye.